Sorry for the delay. I hope that you all enjoyed Donald's jokes and it was appropriate. And I want to welcome you, and again, I apologize for the delay. So tonight we are going to study the Parsha of Tazriya Mitzayra. I want to welcome back Mr. Normato, who just came back from Israel after being there a couple of weeks. And welcome back. So just two things. First of all, some of you got an email about a woman in our community who is sitting Shiva. Not everybody, a lot of times, I know from experience, we know each other, we don't necessarily know each other by name, and especially sometimes the names that we refer to each other is not always the names that we are really called. So there's a lady who comes to class here on Wednesday night also, her name is Luba. She usually sits on this side. So her father is the one who the email is about. Her father passed away, and the funeral was yesterday, and she's sitting Shiva at home. She's going to be a Shabbos too, but she's sitting Shiva. So anybody who wants to go any time during the day, she says there's no, we don't have services there, but anytime you want to go visit her and pay a Shiva visit will be appreciated. So this is the Sluba. If anybody needs a description of her, you know who she is. A very nice lady. Number two, I was asked to announce everyone is looking for kosher food. So now there is just like there is, you saw the truck restaurants, there is a truck restaurant called Kogo Kosher. Kogo Kosher, what is that called? Sorry. I think it's called Kogo Kosher. What is it called? Yeah. It's called, Kogo Food Truck. The Kogo Food Truck. It's a kosher food truck which sells meat, hamburgers, shish kebabs, all kinds of wonderful good food. I actually had an hamburger this evening from them, and that's why I was late. I'm joking. And they are a couple days a week in different places. So every Wednesday, which day is Wednesday, on your way to class, you can stop by. It's on 148 in Main Street, on the corner, in the parking lot there, next to the gas station. There's offices there, like medical offices. So you see a big, colorful truck. It's called Kogo Kosher. It's supervised by the Vad of Seattle. And I can tell you the hamburger was good, but I'm sure they have other good stuff. So those who are looking for an outing, or if you want on your way to class, you want to stop to eat somewhere. So that's a good opportunity for all of you. So take advantage of it. It's going to be on Wednesdays. It's cooked, plated, pita, all kinds. And want pictures? I can send you pictures too.
They have corned beef.
They have corned beef. They have. What is the things that the Rami used to do? Those, those kebabs. Good food. And it comes like in a thing, rice, a salad, a full meal.
Isn't it a Sephardic guy?
It's a bunch of the parking lot on 148. If you go on 148, there are four corners on Main Street. One is 7-Eleven.
Yep.
And then one is a gas station.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right next to that gas station. So basically, on 148 going south.
Super Supplements is over there.
Super Supplements is Northeast 8.
That's from eight.
The next slide.
Next one,
By Walmart.
Across from Walmart.
Instead of lunch and dinner, Rabbi.
Huh?
Really lunch and dinner?
It's lunch and dinner. I know some people from the community who went to lunch today and they enjoyed it, and that's why I wasn't. Somebody got me a burger from there, my own wife, and I'm not a big, I'm not the expert on food, but it was good. It was tasty. It was good. It was kosher, and it came with French fries if you want, or rice, like a full dinner meal. And again, I don't think it's been expensive. So when you walk by the truck down here on North Up and you get in Thai, so you should know there's a kosher one of this on Wednesdays. So I think it worked that good. It's an outing on your way to class. Okay, ready to learn? I think you're all ready to learn. It's late. Oi, tsaras. You come to the doctor and you say, oi, I think I got tsaras. I got leprosy. This is the parsha that we are learning. There is actually two parshas discussing the same subject of tsaras. This week, since it's a leap year, so we're actually going to read them separately. One is Parshas Tazriya, and one is Parshas Metzora. You can find it in Yechumashim on page 608. So basically, the way Tzaraz works, you call up your doctor and you call up the doctor's office, and they say hello, and you say, I think I have Tzarat. Which Tzarat is poorly translated as leprosy. And the doctor's office calls back, and they say, I'm sorry, we can't help you. If you have tsaras, you got to go where? To a Kohen. Very good. And if this fun conversation made you laugh, so you should know that in the olden days, tsarat was not funny at all. At all. They had to go through a very strict, specific examination, very clearly, in order to identify whether this is the nega, the Torah calls it nega, the leprosy of tsarat, and if it was identified to be a tsarat, you had to leave the Jewish camp until you recover from the tsarat. It's all in this parsha. And when you left the Jewish camp, it's not like you had fun with all the other Mitzoraim. You were also isolated, you were in complete isolation, even from the other people who were inflicted with that disease called tsarat. And you weren't isolated because of concern being contagious and carrying the disease further. As we're going to see soon, it's one of those diseases which affected you physically, but very clearly related to a spiritual status. And we're going to see it in a moment. Just to give you a short introduction, that it wasn't a physical illness that you could have cure, so to speak, by going to a doctor. It was an illness which was cured, and you were stricken with that illness based on your conduct, based on your behavior. And this is, like I say, the details being discussed in this parsha and next week's parsha. Mainly the next week's parsha, the name of next week's parsha is actually called Metzora. This week's parsha is called Tazriya because it begins with just a few verses. The only beginning, the first 7-8 verses of this week's parsha talks about a woman who gave birth and what's the halachic status, has to bring a korban. How long does it take it to recover from the bleeding until she can bring the korban? Mentions the importance of making a bris, and that's it. And then from the bottom of the page, on the very same page that you are, Vayedaber Hashem el Moshe leimer, vel Aaron leimer, Hashem speaks to Aaron and Moshe saying, that's the bottom of page 609, Adam, if a person, ki iye be'or psaroi, if a person will have on the skin of his flesh, se'et, or sapachat, or baheret, mentions 3 types of names. There's no translation even in English for them, but this is 3 types of tsarat, of the disease. Ve'hoyo be'or psaroi, and it will become a tsarat, affliction on the skin of his flesh. Ve'huvo el Aaron HaKohen, you don't go to the doctor. You go to whom? You go to Aaron the Kohen, Oy el achad mibonav kohanim, or to one of his sons, which was Osa Kohen, Ve'roa Kohen es nega, and the Kohen shall look at it, shall look at the affliction, and he sees Be'oir HaBasor, Be'seir B'nega Ofach Lovon, he sees that it's changed to white, Umare Anega Omoik Me'or Psoroi, and the affliction appearance is deeper than the skin of his flesh. Nega tzora su, that's considered a nega. Ve'ro'o ha'kohen, and the kohen has to look at it, v'timei oiso, and he has to declare that he is contaminated. No one else. He can't go to the rabbi if the rabbi is not a kohen. You can go to no experts. You can go to no sages. You can go to the prophets. Specifically a kohen. Only the kohen can determine, first of all, whether or not it is tzaraat. And it's not only that, the Kohen, says the Torah, has to also declare, make a verbal declaration that this is actually tzaraat, and you are contaminated. He has to say those words. And then the Torah goes on till the rest of the parsha, with all kinds of different appearances of this skin disease, which, in order to understand it specifically, we have a tractate of Talmud called, believe it or not, Negaim. One of the tractates of Mishnah called Negaim. I still never learned the tractate. I'm leaving certain things for retirement. Or after retirement. Arnold, I'm sure, learned it already. You're also waiting for retirement. Right? So it's called, the tractate of Mishnah is called Negaim, which is discussing all these details. How do you evaluate, how you identify tzaraat? How do you identify it? So basically, you see an unusual stain on your skin. That's how it starts. You go to the kohen, he looks at the color. He has to look at the color of the hair, which is a part of the specific criteria discussed in the Torah, in the Chumash, and in the Talmud, in the Mishnah. Sometimes the evaluation was immediately. The evaluation means, the diagnose. It was immediately. It was diagnosed right away as Torah. Sometimes, as you see in the parsha, just in the verses, it took a week, it took 2 weeks. The Kohen said, come back, let's see if it changes colors, let's say if it keeps the color, let's say if it spreads, let's say if it's isolated. So there's a whole big, lengthy discussion. That's going to be the whole parsha this week. That's what we're going to learn about. And that determined a person to become tamei, to become ritually contaminated, and after the nega disappears, and he regains his status of purity, he has to bring a whole set of offerings, korbanot. He brings birds, not sheep, only birds, and other elements coming in contact with that korban in order to regain his status. In the Talmud, in the Medrash, there's actually a list of what type of conduct the rabbis knew by tradition is what leads a person to tzaraat. More than anything else, tzaraat is identified with the conduct of speaking lashon hara. A person who spoke lashon hara was known, he was going to be the one who will be inflicted with tzaraat. That's what the Gemara makes it clear. We're going to see soon from the Rambam, to the point that the Gemara says in the name of Rabbi Yehuda ben Levi, that how comes that tzaraat gets such a severe and unusual punishment to leave his home, to leave the Jewish community, to be outside for a week or two, a month more, until recovering from tzaraat. The Gemara says that is the consequence for someone who created separations, isolations to others. He broke marriages, he destroyed relationships, employers and employees, community friends, through his lashon hara. So if you cause people to become isolated, so says the Torah, that's going to be your punishment. You are going to go through the same feel of isolation until you will recover and learn the message, what it means not to speak lashon hara. Lashon hara means in English slander or in literal translation, it means evil talk. Matter of fact, if you study Tanakh, the Chumash, the books of prophets, we have a number of famous stories of people who were afflicted with tzaras. And in all the stories, you see one common denominator, and this is that the people who were afflicted with tzarat actually spoke Lashon Hara, and that tzarat was an immediate response to their way of speak. Who is the first person that we meet in the Torah is inflicted with tzarat? Is Moses. No one, not worse than Moshe. If you remember the story, we read it in the book of Exodus in Parshat Shmot. We're soon to celebrate Pesach. Pesach started when Moshe was sent on a mission to speak to Paroi and to be the messenger, the emissary of redeeming the Jewish people out of Egypt. And what does Moshe tell God? He says, God, you're telling me to tell the Jews that you're about to come and redeem them. Vehei lo yaminu li. They're not going to believe me. Oops. What are you saying? They're not going to believe you? You just spoke Lashon Hara on the people. You're making a statement they're not going to believe you. Why are you making them sound like unbelievers? Non-believers? What does God tell Moshe? Put in your hand in your bosom, right? And take it out. Let's see what happens. And what happens to Moshe's hand? Does the Torah? And his hand became afflicted with tzaras. You don't remember the story? Take a look for a second. Why do you have to make... Some of you look a bit like if I'm making it up. So take a look in Parsha Shmos. Go to page 300 and 308 or 309 in your Chumash. Before that, we have in the verses before, on the page before, on verse 1, Moses responds to God and says, but they will not believe in me, and they will not heed my voice, that I will say Hashem did not appear to you. That's what they're going to tell me. That was verse 1. Hashem gives them two challenges. And when you turn to verse 6 on page 309, what does it say? And Hashem said further to him, bring your hand to your bosom. And he brought his hand to his bosom. Then he withdrew it, and behold, his hand was leprous, like snow. Then God said, return it, whatever, and he recovered. But he got tzarat. Like the verse says in Hebrew, Ve'inei yado metzorat kasheleg. So Moshe Rabbeinu, the first Jew, the first man, who was the closest to God, but he made a statement on verse 1, they're not going to believe me. I'm going to tell them God appeared to you. They're going to say, Meshuggah. Go tell it to the Marines. God appeared to you. What do you mean God appeared to you? So what does it say? And this is about the people who we know had issues with belief. And we know those people. We are going to meet them for the next 40 years in the desert. And always raise challenges. Maybe yes, maybe not. Could be. It's not for you to say it. You spoke it, you're going to have a patch. And they got tzarat. Who is the next person in Tanakh who got tzarat? Moshe's own sister. It runs in the family. If you turn to Parshas Baloischo in the book of Bamidbar, and she's speaking something not nicely about your brother. On page 795, So the Torah says on page 795, verse 1, that Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moses regarding the Cushite woman he had married. They were both discussing the sister-in-law and how Nebuch and how bad they feel for her that your husband is stuck on Mount Sinai with God and never comes home. He's always busy teaching, learning, and and what does he think, and so on. And what happens next on next page? God gets angry on verse 9. Turn the page to 797. Hashem flared up against them, and he left. And what happens next on verse 10? The cloud that departed from atop of the tent, and behold, Miriam was afflicted with tzaraat. And Aaron turns to Miriam, and behold, she was afflicted with tzaraat. And on the end of the page, she was isolated 7 days. She was outside of the camp. Verse 14, verse 15 happens to be that the people were very respectful to her and nobody continued traveling without her. They could have lived her. But after all, Miriam, she was known. You know what it means for Miriam to be afflicted with tzaraat? You know Miriam was for Moshe? She was the sister who saved his life. Without Miriam, he would never have a Moshe. She stood there by the Nile River when he was in the basket, watching to see what's going to happen to him. And she was the one who ensured that there is a nurse for Moshe, that he can nurse, properly. She was the one who was really his best sister, to the point that according to the Talmud, she was the one who is the cause for Moshe coming to life altogether. Her parents were already divorced after she was born, Miriam. And she convinced the parents to get remarried, Amram and Yocheved, to get remarried, and from that new marriage came at Moshe. She was a very, very loving sister. And what did she say already? She didn't say Moshe is cuckoo. She didn't say that Moshe is, is pretending to be busy and doesn't come home. What did she say? The Torah tells us what she said. They felt bad that the sister-in-law is stuck home alone. Moshe is busy with God, and she is home alone. So they said that. What does Moshe think he is? God speaks to him, therefore he can't come home to his wife. God speaks to everyone. Sahako. That's what she said. Is that Lashon Hara? Oh, but someone like Miriam, that's already considered Lashon Hara. The fact that she put Moshe in the negative, as if Moshe doesn't know what he's doing. If Moshe is not coming home, it must be for good reason. What are you questioning it? What are you talking about it? It shouldn't be a part of your shmooze. And for that, she was afflicted with tzaraat. Anybody who studied the book of Kings knows that there is more stories of tzaraat. There are two famous Metzoraim. The story, I think we're going to maybe read it in the Torah, this week's Parsha or next week's Parsha, I don't remember, which has to do with Elisha the prophet. It was a famous general in the army of Aram. His name was Naaman, and Naaman was a person who was afflicted to tzaraat, and he came to the prophet Elisha, asking him for his blessing, and there was a whole miracle that Elisha performed, which brought to Naaman's recovery. And it was Gehazi. Gehazi was the Gabbai of the prophet Elisha. And what did Gehazi? Oh, Gehazi was the Gabbai, and Gehazi told Naaman, my master Elisha performed such a miracle. You should give a few dollars for it, As if Elisha asked for the money. Elisha never asked for the money. But when Elisha heard it, Elisha got very, very upset that, you presenting me without any rights. You're making people sound as if I'm doing it for the money. And I just gave a blessing to this general, and it wasn't for you to go and make me sound like a schnorrer or someone like who does it for the money. And he gave Gehazi servant a curse that you should get what Naaman had. And Gehazi never turned into a Metzorah. So in the book of Kings, the whole story. Then later you read weiter in Tanakh, there's a famous story, we're going to have it actually next week's of Torah. I think it's next week's of Torah. With a famous hunger that the Arameyites placed siege over Israel, and there was 4 famous Metzoroim. It was actually Gehazi. According to Talmud, it was Gehazi and his sons, which also became Metzorim. They were the ones that came to inform the Jewish camp that yes, that's next week's parsha, next week's Haftorah. We have the whole story with the story of the 4 Metzoroim, which actually helped the Jewish people because they found out what happens outside of the camp, and are the enemies trying to attack, or the enemy actually fled. If you want to look it up, it's on page 1172. The whole story of Naaman. Oh, it actually is this week's Haftorah, you see? Yeah. These 2 stories is in the Haftorah from this week and next week. The story of Naaman with Elisha is on page 1171. It's going to be this Shabbos Haftorah. Yes, that's the story of Naaman. And next week's Haftorah is going to be the story of the 4 Metzoroim on page 1172. You come to Shul, you'll be able to follow 2 nice stories. There's all kinds of Talmudic stories of people who had tzoras. The king, the Pharaoh who kidnapped Sarah, also was afflicted with tzoras. Talmud talks about King David after the story with Bathsheba. He was inflicted 6 months with tzorat. Some say that the reason that Vashti refused coming to Achashverosh when he invited her to the meal, because she was at that point afflicted with tzorat. There's a very interesting story in the Gemara, which has to do with Mashiach. You know the story of Mashiach? Mashiach, every generation there's someone who's supposed to be Mashiach. You have to have a Mashiach in every generation, because if the time of redemption has arrived, there has to be a candidate, right, to take the job of being the King Mashiach. And throughout the generations, people always try to identify the Mashiach. It's not a secret that the Lubavitchers like to believe that the Rebbe was Mashiach, he's Mashiach, who knows. But throughout the ages, one of the famous stories was in the Gemara talks about that Eliyahu Hanavi gave Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi a sign. He wanted to know who is Mashiach. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi was a Talmudic sage with a very close relationship with Elijah the prophet. They used to communicate. And he wanted to know, I want to know who's the Mashiach. Give me a hint so I can go see him. So the Gemara says that he sent them to Rome. And he told them he's by the gates of Rome. He's sitting together with other poor people which have this disease called tzorat. He himself also has tzorat. And there you're going to find him. So he said, but how am I going to identify him if he's sitting among other people and they're all dealing with the same disease? How will I know who he is? So Eliyahu Hanavi told them the difference is that they usually take care of their tzoras, leprosy, by putting what do you call it? Bandages. Yeah, by putting bandages on their tzoras. But all other people take off all their bandages, clean up the tzoras, and then put them all back at the same time. Mashiach, he takes off one bandage, washes it, puts back the bandage, then takes off the next bandage. He does not do it all at once. He has to be ready to be Mashiach. So if the time has come, so to put back one bandage is okay, but to go put, if the time has come now and he's busy taking, he just took off all his bandages, the redemption might be delayed a few minutes, and then we're going to have to wait another who knows how many years. So yes, he always has to be on call. So that's why he takes off one bandage, leaves that, puts the bandage right back, and that's how you're going to identify. The Gemara actually says that Rabbi Shua ben Levi made a trip to Rome. He made a trip to Rome, and he met him. He met him. He saw the guy. And Rabbi Shua ben Levi asked him, so when are you coming? So he called him today. Rabbi Shua ben Levi went back to the hotel, all excited. He just happens to be. He met Mashiach the day Mashiach is coming. The day passed and nothing happened. Lo Mashiach velo na'alaim, shum davar. So he went back to him next day. He was still sitting there. He says, what happened? I thought you were supposed to come yesterday. He told him, I told you today, quoting a verse. There's a verse in the Torah that says, Hayom im bekolot tishma'u. Today I will come if you will listen to my voice. Meaning, if we all go to, it could be today. If we all obey God's voice today, Mashiach would have been today. But happens to be that every day is someone else, creating a glitch in the system. So Mashiach didn't come today. So this is just historically what Torah sees, and how do we find the idea of Torah in different biblical stories and Talmudic stories and insight. But Torah, seemingly it seems like a punishment, but it's not really a punishment. Let me read for you first at the Rambam. Maimonides introduces the idea of Torah. Maimonides, being a court of Jewish law, obviously summarizes in a number of chapters. It happens to be, I just learned that. Why did I just learn that? Because as you know, the Rebbe instituted and asked that we should study every day Rambam. So those who follow the Rebbe's instructions, Hasidim and even not Hasidim, study the Rambam every day. Now, if you study the Rambam, the Rebbe wanted that people should be very learned. The only book which covers the entire oral tradition, from A to Z, from beginning to end, is the book of the Rambam called Mishneh Torah. We spoke about it many times. It's a 14-volume book. This is the only person, not even the Shulchan Aruch, no other book is a book like the Rambam. So the Rebbe wanted us to learn and to know what's going on in our world. So instituted in 1984, by his birthday, asking that people should study Rambam. And he said, if you study 3 chapters a day, so every year, you finish the entire oral tradition. If you can't do 3 chapters a day, so do at least 1 chapter a day, so every 3 years, you will finish the entire oral tradition. It's a very good, anyone who asks me for a good program in learning, I always suggest the Rebbe's advice to study Rambam. You have a lesson in Rambam on Chabad.org every day in English and Hebrew in every language. And you can simply go through things which you would never learn. Like I said, I never studied the tractate of Talmud called Negaim, but I studied the Rambam, who qualifies those laws in his laws of Negaim. And it happens to be that this week, the end of last week and the beginning of this week, we were just coming, nothing to do with the Parsha, but just holding in that section in Rambam, which talks about the laws of Torah. Laws of Torah. This is a section which has 16 chapters. 16 chapters of Torah. When it comes to the end of the 16 chapters, and the 16 chapters is really more technical descriptions of the disease, and this color and that color. Between me and you, I don't understand everything it says, because, if I would have to give time to it and listen to the class, maybe I will know more. Every year, I get something else learning about Torah. When it comes to the end of the laws of Torah, the Rambam goes and does something very unusual to his style of writing in this book called Mishnah Torah. Because as you know, the Rambam wrote a famous philosophical book, Moreh Nevuchim, the Guide to the Perplexed, which he goes into the reasons, into the insight, into the philosophy beyond the commandments and prohibitions. The Rambam wrote letters, very, very profound, inspiring and philosophical letters, which is printed and is being used and studied. But the book of Mishnah Torah is a book of law, right? It's the traditions, it's the laws, it's the legalities. But from time to time, but very, very unoften, he also brings some insight. And one of the places which does it more than any other place, expanding on it in detail and getting into the so-called to the philosophy of that concept, is when it comes to Tzorah. The Rambam finishes the 16th chapter of Tzorah, and if you want, I'm sure you can find it on Google or somewhere and look it up. And he says that you should know that Tzorah has nothing to do with nature. The Rambam was a physician. The Rambam, one of his biggest expertise was diagnose. He knew how to diagnose illnesses very quickly and very sharply. That's what he was known for. He cured people based on his knowledge in the world of medicine. And he was himself a physician in Egypt, and before that in Morocco. In Morocco, in Fas. So the Rambam says you should know that this whole discussion of leprosy has nothing to do with nature, he says. He calls it Ot Upele Haya B'Yisrael. That was a sign and a wondrous sign, meaning something which is nothing unnatural, transcending the norms of nature. And the reason it came, he says, Kedei la'aziran milashon hara. God simply wanted to warn us, stop talking lashon hara. It was like a flashing light. And the Rambam goes on with a beautiful, long discussion about the 3 different stages of leprosy described in this parsha and the next week's parsha. Because there is leprosy which occurred on your house. You found a stain on the walls. We're going to learn in next week's parsha. There is leprosy which occurred on your clothes, on your pillowcase, on your tablecloth, on your shirt. There is leprosy which occurred on your skin. And the Rambam puts it in an order. He says, you know the way it worked? When God sees someone speaking Lashon Hara, and he knows that the person is bringing a destruction to himself and to his colleagues and community, he tries to hold them back. How? He puts a sign of Tzorah on his house. The house has to go through all examination. Sometimes they have to remove one of the stones, one of the beams, which is lepers. Sometimes they have to demolish the entire house, unfortunately. But it's only your house. God says, okay, listen, you get a message? Oh, you don't get it? The next step is on your clothes. Meaning you wouldn't get on your clothes before you get on your house first. But as long as you continued in your behavior, it moved from your house to your clothes. And if you still didn't get a message, then it appeared on your skin. It appeared on your skin. And the Rambam says that this is really not a punishment. This is a miraculous personal assistance that God shows us how much He cares and He loves you, wanting you to hold back from speaking Lashon Hara. I'm giving you signals. I'm giving you warnings. I want you to stop. I want you to stop. I want you to stop. You're bringing yourself to a place where you're just destroying someone else's life, or you're separating yourself from another person in the community just because someone told you something and you never gave yourself a chance to find out Is it true? Is it not true? And even if it's true, why is it important to say it? Why is it necessary to say it? All of that has to do with Lashon Hara. And we always think about it, and speak about it, and we hear about it, and we all unfortunately stumble on it too. I had a story just a week ago. Somebody came and informed me something which needed to be taken care of, truly needed to be taken care of. And he gave me an idea, which in his mind, who is the person involved. And I had reason to believe that he is right, but I didn't do the 100% examination. I did the 80% examination. And I ended up speaking to the person, trying to understand why would he do something like that. Then I found out that he never did it. It's not even him. And I had to apologize, and I had to apologize to the father. And I'm sure that they all forgave me. We understand each other, that people make mistakes. But when I look back to myself, what led me to it? Someone told me something, which the person should have come and tell me that something like this happened. Sometimes you have to go over. If you see something needs to be watched and protected, don't hold it back. You have to be protecting other people. And that could have been one of those cases. But when he gave me the name, which he thinks that this might be the person, and even though I had many reasons to think that this is the person based on the circumstances, but as long as I wasn't convinced, I shouldn't have go and approach him, because now it takes time to recover, right? Lashon Hara. And who knows how many marriages and relationships and things happen it's like an arrow. It's like a car. I always call it the best, but it comes to my mind. It's a car with it was actually you, Mr. Normatov. You left this morning a paper over
I
here.
thought you were pointing at me.
I will point on you in a minute. I know you like me to point to you, but I will do it in a minute. Mr. Normatov, you left me this morning over here a pamphlet you picked up in Israel on your way back out to the airport, probably.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a pamphlet, an interesting pamphlet. I don't know. Mixture, Breslov, this, Chabad. I think they didn't make up their mind who they are. But I read it. I read it a little this morning. I was sitting here. I just read it through, and he describes Lashon Hara. Somehow he comes to talk about Lashon Hara for a moment. He describes Lashon Hara as a car which lost its brakes.
Uh-huh.
A car which lost its brakes. What is a car? What is a car losing its brakes?
That's the story I told while you were out of the room.
Oh yeah?
It was a fact.
A guy is driving and he sees a guy is passing the road, and I want to stop. Not that I don't want to stop. I lost my brakes and I want to stop, and I know that I can't. And you drive in and you kill the person. And then you continue driving, and a guy is standing by the bus stop, and you see your car going there, and you desperately want to stop it, but you can't. This is Lashon Hara. Lashon Hara, you threw an arrow, the arrow is out. To bring it back, sometimes, many times, unfortunately, there's nothing you can do about it. I'm going to get to the story in a minute. Say something. I see you want to say something, but don't leave before I tell you something important. Yeah.
Why is it then, when we speak Lashon Hara, that we don't get afflicted?
We do.
Because we live in a world of pollution. To get Torah, we have to deserve it. We have to have clear air, spiritually and physically. And God is close with us in a way that He's ready to give us those hints. But when the air is polluted and contaminated, people who speak Lashon Hara live a very fancy, loving, and exciting life. And people who don't speak Lashon Hara live in poverty and in anguish. And the whole thing is all confused. And this is the life that we have because of pollution. The world this is not a clear world. This is not a world of clarity. Yes, you were next.
Yes, you used to have another description. for
The pillow.
Torah. The pillow.
The pillow feathers, right? Everybody knows that one. Yes. What else?
I just heard than a month ago.
Oh, Lashon Hara, tell us something. No.
That, when we study Torah, when we bring up the, well, if you speak Lashon Hara, it takes away from your learning Torah, takes away the merit of you
I'm
learning
sure.
Torah.
Takes away a lot of it. There's a lot of, even in Rambam. But I want to say something. I know we started late. I'm going to tell you something. I probably said it to you once, but I'm going to say it again. People want to know what's the remedy. I know I heard it already so many times about the severity of Lashon Hara, and every year comes the Torah, and the Rabbi talks about it again. Give me a way to hold myself back from speaking Lashon Hara. Is there anything I can do about it? I mean, after all, we sit, we talk, conversations, and we meet. And at some point, what else? How are you going to control it? Names come up, people come up, It's a part of life. And the Talmud actually makes a statement saying it's one of the three things that a person probably cannot protect himself almost every day from stumbling on. But after all, we are trying to always become better and improve our behavior. So what can we do with Lashon Hara? I will tell you a story. Maaseh she'haya kach haya. This is how the story happened. It was years ago, and I was invited. There was a group who used to study. There's a famous book which specifically deals with Lashon Hara and its laws. A lot of times there is a lot of halachic questions. Is it really Lashon Hara? Is it okay to say? Someone calls me up, Rabbi, you know what? I have a shidduch for Rachel's son. I have a shidduch for him. Do you know anything about him? Happens to be, I know more than I should know, but I know. Am I allowed to share the information? Am I not allowed to share the information? There's a lot of halachic. Somebody comes to me and he says, Mr. So-and-so asked me to help him find a job. I mean, I can help him. In my position in Microsoft, I can help him find a job. But you know him, Rabbi. Is he an honest person? Okay. Happens to be, I know some insights. For whatever reason, that I would not offer him a job so quickly if you want to do good to your company. Am I saying it? Am I not saying it? Lashon Hara has many, many, many laws and conditions which are important to learn, and the one who put it all into specific and to detail was a very great man, lived and passed away actually in the early 30s. His name was Rabbi Meir Kagan, known as the Chafetz Chaim. He lived in a small little town called Radin, Lithuania, and he wrote a book which he compiled all the details on this subject called Lashon Hara. He named the book Chafetz Chaim, which means in Hebrew, desire life, because in Tehillim there is a verse which David HaMelech says, Mi ha'ish hachafetz chaim ohev yamim lirot tov. Who is a man who loves life, who desires life, and who wants to see good days? Guard your tongue from speaking evil. So he named his book Chafetz Chaim, and he became named after his book, meaning no one even knows him by name anymore. People call him the Chafetz Chaim says, the Chafetz Chaim died, the Chafetz Chaim. It's actually recently one of the archives which they open up now in Russia and Poland. There was a video of this rabbi. You see him coming to a rabbinic gathering in I think in Vienna or in Marienbad, maybe Vienna. You see this Chafetz Chaim. This is a video from 1932. You see him coming, a small man, old. There is pictures of him always, but you never saw him alive. In that video, you find it on the internet. I'm sure it's on YouTube. Put in Chafetz Chaim, you're going to find him. You see a little man with a dashiko, with a Russian casket, and he's the holy Chafetz Chaim, very holy man. He died at a very old age, and he traveled and spoke and lectured about this subject of Lashon Hara. So he talks about these details, and his books is in English and in all languages. Anyway, so there was a group who used to meet in one of the neighborhoods here in Seattle, which they used to study once a week that subject. I'm sure it was an exciting class. I would have liked to have a class on Lashon Hara. Because I assume when you have a class like this, you keep on bringing up scenarios. Is this Lashon Hara, Rabbi? In the meantime, you hear a lot of good stories. I'm joking. But I can imagine, I mean, you have to know how to respond, so you have to know the scenarios for it. Anyway, they used to have a class. What do you think, Bob? Should we have a Lashon Hara class? So they had a Lashon Hara class, and they invited me to come give them a presentation. And I said, you know what, I'm going to tell you what does the Rebbe say about Lashon Hara. They was not Lubavitchers. And I was sure that I'm going to open, I had at that time, it was 21 volumes of the Rebbe's letters. Today they have already 38, close to 40 volumes. Then that year it was 20, I think it was 20 or 21 volumes of the Rebbe's letters. And the 20th volume had an index in the end. So I said, okay, the index showed one of the topics was Lashon Hara. So I saw about 20 letters Lashon Hara. I said, I'm going to have a class. Design fire. Who can imagine that? The Rebbe Lashon Hara, I'm sure he has so much to say. There's 20 references. I go, reference after reference, after reference, after reference, and there's just one line in the entire 21 volumes of the Rebbe's letters. One line repeating itself, mentioning this Kanta Lashon Hara. You know what the line is? This is the line. Just as it is forbidden to speak Lashon Hara on somebody else, so too it is forbidden to speak Lashon Hara about your oneself. That's it. This is the only line that the Rebbe has about Lashon Hara. And it comes in different contexts. For example, the Rebbe tells somebody who was living in Cuba, I remember his name, Tzemach Rebbe, the Rebbe says to build a mikveh in Cuba, because he lived in Cuba. He came from Russia, he ended up in Cuba. So he wrote the Rebbe back, I just came out of Russia, what do I know about building a mikveh? What do I know about mikveh? It's not, what does the Rebbe say to him? Just like it is forbidden to speak Lashon Hara about somebody else, it is forbidden to speak Lashon Hara about your own self. You know how to make a mikveh and figure it out. What do you mean I can't? And same thing with somebody else. Somebody wrote to the Rebbe, I have so much difficulties, I can't believe that, I can't see myself praying. And the Rebbe said, yes, you can. He argued, I can't. No, the Rebbe doesn't know who I am. Huh? Lashon Hara. Just as it's forbidden to speak Lashon Hara about somebody else. Every letter, the same line. There's no insight, there's no discussion, there is no... Which later I found a story about the Chafetz Chaim himself. I read it in the biography of the Chafetz Chaim's life. The Chafetz Chaim was riding on a horse and buggy, coming into his own little shtetl, the city of Radin. It was such a big town. His wife was running a grocery store. That's how she supported the family. He was able to teach Torah. So he comes into Radin, and somebody else is taking an eat. Somebody else is joining them on the wagon. So this Jew is turning to the Chafetz Chaim, not knowing who he is, and he says, do you know where the Chafetz Chaim lives in Radin? Where is his house? So the Chafetz Chaim says, I think I know, but why do you want to see him? He says, I want to see him, I want to ask a bracha, I want to take a blessing from this great tzaddik, the Chafetz Chaim. The Chafetz Chaim says, ask a blessing from the Chafetz Chaim? He is not a blessing giver. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Looks at him and he gives him a zest. You sheigatz. That's how you speak against the Chafetz Chaim? And he gave him a good zest. Lo and behold, didn't take much longer that he comes up and he realizes that he was actually hitting the Chafetz Chaim himself. Fine. But then the Chafetz Chaim said to his son, I think, and he said, let me tell you what happened to me today. I got a good lesson. What was the lesson? I wrote my book on all the laws of Lashon Hara. And there was one section I wasn't sure if I should write about. And this is whether or not a person is allowed to speak Lashon Hara about himself. I couldn't figure out that this is a part of the issue. So I did not write about it. I did not write about speaking Lashon Hara about yourself. Today, I got my lesson. If I wouldn't speak Lashon Hara about myself, who is the Chofetz Chaim that you think it can give brachas? I would not get, the zets I got. So now I know that there was a mistake. So when I read that story, then when I saw that by the Rebbe is punkt verkehrt, exactly the opposite. The old Lashon Hara is the old content of Lashon Hara is not about so much what you talk about others. But then I wondered why. Why don't they find other topics of Lashon Hara? And I realized, my friends, I think this is the law, but this is also the remedy. Yes, the law is that you don't speak Lashon Hara about yourself. Not only about others. You don't speak Lashon Hara about your own self. How is your psychologist going to make money tomorrow? I don't know. But you don't speak Lashon Hara about yourself. That's number one. But this is the remedy. It's very possible, and I'm speaking rule from experience, that people who are immersed in Lashon Hara have a very low appreciation to themselves.
Very self-esteem.
Self-esteem is already the side effect. Meaning there are people who are speaking negatively about themselves. Not that others are speaking negatively about them. They are not proud enough on who they are and what they are doing. And like remember, I always say I heard from Rabbi Grona from Australia, and he taught me a very good lesson. He spoke about himself, and he was screaming at a big voice, and he said, "Arrogant is strength, but to be proud, 100% kosher." Proud. I don't mean proud, like the giraffe we spoke last week. I mean kosher proud. Kosher proud in a way that you know your values and you know what you have accomplished and you know what you're doing. And if you do something good for your family or for your community, you should appreciate it. You don't have to walk around arrogant about it, but be happy about yourself. The person who does not speak Lashon Hara about himself is less going to speak Lashon Hara about others. People who are speaking Lashon Hara about others are usually people who are very unsatisfied with themselves. They speak Lashon Hara on themselves too. I'm not able, I'm not worth it, I'm not organized, I'm not successful, I'm not this, I'm not pretty enough, I'm fat, I'm skinny, I'm the Genug. Stop talking about yourself, Bichlal. It's either good not to speak about yourself so much, okay? It's anyway healthy. Obviously, don't speak Lashon Hara about yourself. That's what the Rebbe says. Believe in yourself. Stop talking about Lashon Hara about yourself. Like the Chofetz Chaim said, if I would write in my book that you're not allowed to speak Lashon Hara on yourself, I would have never get the schmeiss that I got on the wagon, right? And when a person is able to be a person, be a mensch with himself, he's not going to find it necessary to speak about others. And in Mirz Hashem, we're married to see only goodness and happiness, and let us see each other happy and healthy by watching our mouths both about others, but like I said, mainly about ourselves.